All right, welcome into another episode of You Don't Know Jackson James. I was just getting ready to record. I was just getting ready to hit the record button. I literally have my entire rundown right here of things I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about the Pro Bowl, Super Bowl week, and then a little bit of NBA trade deadline rumors and whatnot. I'm hitting the mic, I'm going all over the place. But then Shams bomb happened, and we have our first major trade, so we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to start with some trade deadline, talk about the Pro Bowl, and then a little bit of Super Bowl preview as it is Super Bowl week. Thank you for joining me on another episode. I'm trying to do these daily now. I'm just going to try to post something daily, so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, All Jacked Up Sports. I'm excited to be back. I'm going to try really hard at this, so if you can share this, like this, comment your favorite thing from today's episode. If that's just, hey, the intro is fire, or the intro is a little rough, let me know. Let me know. I'm excited, though. But let's hop right into this. Let me switch over. The first big trade of this NBA trade deadline is the Memphis Grizzlies trading star forward Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz. Wow. This is a massive trade. And this is definitely not a trade for the casual fans, the fans that maybe watch their team once a week if it's on ESPN or on Peacock now. No. This is like potentially, I'm not going to say like league shifting, but this is definitely one of those trades that we'll look back at in 3-ish years and be like, wow, this team won or this team absolutely got fleeced. And here's my basic first thoughts. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, Memphis Grizzlies trading star forward Jaren Jackson Jr. I was like, okay, to where? Right? Because there's rumors about John Moran potentially being moved. There's rumors, about them getting a breakup, but then potentially they're going to keep him and whatnot. It's a little bit more complicated, but this trade is kind of the first domino for Memphis. But actually, it's really the second domino to fall. In the offseason, when they traded Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for those first-round picks, they got KCP back. They also got a couple other pieces back. That was like the first time you're like, are they kind of blowing it up? Are they, exploring this idea of, they're not good enough to win? And this, to me, officially solidifies that idea. And this is kind of foreshadowing a potential Ja Morant deal. But why would the Jazz do this? That's my big thing, right? Shams tweeted up above, the Jazz make major swing for Jackson and team him with Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George, Walker Kessler, and more. This signals a full rebuild for the Grizzlies and around its promising young core, and now has many future first-round picks as any team in the NBA. They are stacked with first-round picks now. They have Orlando's. They have the Jazz. Now, I don't know the details on these specific first-round picks. Is it the Jazz? Is it, other teams' firsts? The full trade will have to come out. Just more of that from Shams. Let me just quickly check Shams here live to see if there's any other trades that I'm missing out. Oh, here we go. Another one. Minnesota, Detroit, and Chicago have agreed on a multi-team deal that sends Jaden Ivey, Mike Conley Jr. to the Bulls, Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric to the Pistons. The Bulls just got Saric from the Cavs Kings deal the other day. Detroit also receives a 2026 first-round protected swap from Minnesota. This is fascinating. The Bulls, they don't make too many moves around the deadline. They sold a little bit last season, but now I'm trying to fully understand. This is a live reaction too, by the way. Kevin Huerter, he was a piece they got in the Zach LaVine trade. I'm trying to piece this around. Okay. Minnesota and Detroit have agreed. Sends Jaden Ivey and okay, so what are the okay. So they were just selling on Mike Conley to get a first round pick swap from Minnesota. Interesting. I wonder if this signals anything for Minnesota. I don't know too much about their cap situation. Obviously, their name has come up a lot in Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors, and we'll talk about that in here in just a little bit. So 2 big trades. I guess this one's not as big. It's definitely just shocking to see 2 contenders. I mean, you have the top team in the East and one of the top teams in the West making trades. And then you have the Bulls. The Bulls pick up, I don't know, Mike Conley's probably on an expiring deal. I don't see the Bulls, maybe they could probably waive him. I don't see him as much of a piece, but they get a nice little piece in Jaden Ivey with Detroit. Maybe Detroit's just trying to get off his deal, but maybe they wanted more shooting, and Kevin Huerter Jr. Dario Saric is just a guy that's kind of getting passed around right now. So let's see. Bulls and Pistons have desires met here in young and veteran guards to Chicago, and a sharpshooter goes to Detroit. Minnesota creates significant tax savings and roster space as they pursue a Milwaukee star this week. Now, Shams and Giannis, I mean, it's the most annoying thing in the NBA. He just keeps tweeting about Giannis, but this is one of the moves where you're like, okay, does Minnesota potentially have a leg up on getting Giannis? I think it would be a great move for the Timberwolves. Let me quickly look up ESPN NBA standings. I just mistyped that. Don't look at that. Because you usually see teams around this point sell, and one of those big teams I kind of talked about a bunch is the Dallas Mavericks. Okay, why can't we see this? What am I doing here, folks? Okay. If I do this, does this break it? Let's see. Nope, it fixed it. All right, sweet. So I don't care about more. Get out of here. All right. So as we take a quick look at these standings, the Pistons right there, obviously moving off Jaden Ivey, sending him to the Bulls that are at 9th right now. You know, luckily for the Bulls, that's not necessarily, their pick. I believe it was Minnesota's, first round pick swap, which I think now more than ever. I mean, we just kind of contradicts the Jazz Grizzlies deal, but I feel like teams are a little bit more conscientious of keeping their first round picks. That's why we haven't seen guys like AD get moved yet. Guys like Ja Morant get moved. Giannis is definitely a big question mark because the Warriors, right? They would have to move off a guy like Jimmy, but Jimmy's kind of a dead asset at this point, at least for this season. And maybe in the future, maybe the Bucks can get a couple more picks for him if they were to make that trade to get Jimmy Butler. But the real cream of the crop for the Bucks in trading Giannis to the Golden State Warriors is those first round picks that would be included in that deal. But if you're the Warriors, do you really want to give up your future when that future looks like it won't have Curry in it potentially? Right? Like, do you want to trade those first round picks when those could be valuable when you don't have Curry, but you're going to have Giannis? It's definitely a little bit of that gray area of, do you want to give up picks, right? If you're a team like Detroit, you necessarily, or even New York doesn't have a bunch, but maybe even Boston and Toronto, right? These teams control their first round, their future first in the next couple of drafts. Do they potentially make a move this trade deadline to become, a true contender? One of my favorite spots for AD to go is somewhere in the East in a place like Toronto, right? They're 30-21, very sneaky good. And if Toronto can just give up some trade assets, maybe one decent player or something like that, they could potentially make a move here in the East and, make at least a run in the postseason. Same thing with the Cavs. The Cavs are now linked, and that'll transition us into the James Harden apparently trade request out in LA. That was kind of a news bomb last night. James Harden and the Clippers are working on a trade for him to go to another team. Now, James Harden is maybe the biggest homie hopper in the entire NBA. This guy just cannot stay in one place. I think it's already legacy ruining. I'm not going to do a whole spiel on James Harden, just because it's kind of a shame because he won't have really any place to call home when he calls it a career, even though I think he's an all-time great player. And, if he gets traded to the Cavs for Darius Garland, let's say it's a one-for-one swap. It probably won't be that, but let's say it's a one-for-one swap. Does that make the Cavs a much better team? I think so. Especially when you don't have to rely on James Harden to be a primary scorer. If his role is a little bit reduced, that could be a decent deal. But the Cavs are also linked to a bunch of more trades because they're one of those teams. They were the first seed last year. They've fallen off this year. They're 30-21, getting closer to the deadline. They're not necessarily one of the scariest teams in the NBA. They're, the 5th seed in a weak Eastern Conference. So for the Cavs, you would think they would make some moves, and I think they will, but it's just a matter of when and what they'll give up. So Yeah, and then we take a look at the Western Conference standings. The Jazz made a win now move at 15 and 35, 24 games back. Yikes. Yikes. They're 1 and 9 in the last 10. They're not a very good team, and yet they're making trades like this. And, if they didn't give up their first round pick this upcoming draft, that's huge because they gave up 3. So I need to look at those details. Follow me on Twitter. I'll give my thoughts on that, on the whole trade details and whatnot when it comes out. But this is definitely a crazy trade because you have 2 teams that are not even in the play-in making trades. It makes sense for Memphis, right? Memphis understands where they're at, right? Well, these other teams in the West understand where they're at. We already kind of saw the Kings make some moves, right? Trading off some pieces, getting some future assets. But then, what does New Orleans do? New Orleans doesn't hold their first round pick next year. Atlanta does, right? So does New Orleans try to get some first round draft capital? Do they kind of just hold strong and hope for they definitely got to make a move. Utah's already made their move, but it's kind of a win. I want to say it's a win now move, but it's like a win move instead of selling. They definitely bought at the deadline. The Mavericks are definitely one of the hottest names in terms of the news cycle for do they sell or are they going to retain some pieces? I definitely think they should make some moves. And then Memphis, they've already made a move that I wish the Mavericks would make. But then you have teams like Portland and Golden State and Minnesota here that are big names in the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors. If I was him, I would say, get me out of the West. Keep me in the East, right? I think Toronto's a nice place. He's been linked to really liking Miami as a team. Now, Miami, 27-24 right now, 10 and a half games back. They're in the play-in. They're only a game back, or they're only 2 games back from the 6th seed. And so if I'm Giannis, not only is it Miami, but you get a decent little squad now. What does Miami have to give up to get him? I'm pretty sure they're in control of their first round pick, so that necessarily shouldn't be a major problem. But in terms of what pieces, I've seen Tyler Hero linked. I don't know if that's a great move for Miami. Khalil Ware, that's a nice young piece for them, right? You don't want to give up too much because then it's like, okay, I wouldn't say they're necessarily a contender, but they're a playoff team, right? Do you just want to trading for Giannis, you want to become a contender. You don't want to just stay a playoff team. Now, trading for Giannis, that's not necessarily a win. It has to be a must-win this season move. It could definitely be let's win in the next 2 to 3 years, right? He's only 31 years old. He's still a beast. I don't see major fall-off happening at least in the next 3 to 4 years. So the trade for them, maybe they trade off Tyler Hero and they're like, okay, we can build through either free agency or the draft because Miami is a little bit of a free agent destination. So that is something that is very, very interesting. So now we'll transition. That's the NBA trade deadline rumors. We'll update it. I mean, it's Tuesday right now. Deadline's on a Thursday. Or sorry, it is not Wednesday. My watch is messed up. Since it's Wednesday, it is not Wednesday. How did this get messed up that bad? It is Tuesday, February 3rd. The deadline is Thursday, February 5th, around 2-ish p.m. So it's literally in like 2-ish days from the time I'm recording this. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm excited. We already have 2 grid trades. It was kind of a desert there for a little bit, but now we got a little bit of a revamp, which is fun and exciting. So yeah, make sure to follow me on Twitter. Keep up with me there because that's where you'll get most of the reactions, instant reactions and whatnot when I'm at work or whatever. I'll be able to kind of give my thoughts there. So now we'll go into our B block and talking about a little bit of the Pro Bowl. So the Pro Bowl games, or game, I guess, is tonight when I'm recording this. And they're apparently playing 7-on-7 flag football for the, I want to say 2 consecutive years. I don't know if it's been 3 years. But I mean, the Pro Bowl, in terms of all All-Star sports games or celebrations, is definitely the worst one. And it's fallen off the hardest, right? And so legitimately ask yourself, when's the last time you sat down and were excited to watch the Pro Bowl, right? I think it's hard. I think the fact that they moved it to Super Bowl week on a Tuesday night of all days is a little bit confusing. Why wouldn't they just keep it on the Sunday before the Super Bowl? I think that was a perfect time for it. Keep the momentum up of the weekly schedules on Sunday and prep for the Super Bowl. But I bet it's just not good enough, ratings for them to put it there. But when you think about the Pro Bowl, I think it was at its peak when it was played tackle 11 on 11 in Hawaii. When you think of the Pro Bowl, especially in the 2010s, Miami is where it was at, wearing, you know, the Hawaiian gear with the special jerseys. I mean, it was great. The players wanted to go there. They could bring their families. It's a nice little treat for them, right? And then it kind of fell off a little bit when I believe they changed it to Tampa. They kept it closer. I get Miami's or going to Hawaii is pretty expensive, but making it, closer to the actual, you know, nation of the United States rather than an island definitely makes it a little bit cheaper, makes it easier potentially for families to go. They just want to get the players there, and it'll still tackle football, but then you could totally tell as it got more progressed that it was definitely getting softer and softer, right? They even try to spice it up with legends drafting their teams. I remember it was like Michael Irving versus Jerry Rice, or they did a little tournament like 3 consecutive years where it was like two teams play by drafted by legends, and the next year it's two different captains, and then the captain that won the previous year played the one that played last year or whatever. It was a cool concept. There was definitely some plays where the guys actually went hard, especially when it was a close game. But then they kind of just went back to NFC versus AFC. They brought back the Pro Bowl games there for a little bit, and I'll get into that in a second. Those type of mini games or the challenges that they did, that was fun. And then they just kind of fully committed to flag football. And it's officially kind of dead at this point. And so, what is the purpose of Pro Bowl week or the Pro Bowl game at this point? What is the point, right? It is to, I believe, to celebrate the players that were loved by the fans and had a great season, right? Players want to see their favorite players play, especially when they've had a good season, right? As a Cowboys fan, you want to see Dak Prescott play, right? As I'm trying to think, as a Browns fan, I know there's some heat with Shedeur Sanders, but it's like, oh, I got to see Shedeur Sanders play a little bit, right? Even though he had, not a Pro Bowl caliber year, you still get to see him play. And so there's definitely some, restructuring we have to do with the qualifications of the league in terms of making the game. But at this point, I think it's just, they just need to have it at this point. It's like, oh, you're a Pro Bowler, congrats, right? It doesn't have the same prestige as an All-Star in the NBA. More players care about All Pros than they do Pro Bowls, right? Because the All Pros, like, okay, you actually are the best at your position, right? Rather than getting a fan vote, which, again, is definitely some issues. A lot of people are thinking, do we put it halfway through the season? I don't think that's a good thing. So it's a recipe for disaster when you're trying to figure out what can we do to fix the Pro Bowl. So now, I think the best thing that they did is bring back the Pro Bowl games, the mini games. They had accuracy challenges for the quarterbacks. They had a catching challenge with quarterbacks and wide receivers. They had, relay races with D linemen, running backs, all, intertwined for team games. Made it AFC versus NFC. Really fun. I'm trying to think of some other ones. A kicking challenge, which, hey, it's only like 5 to 10 minutes of content on the TV, right? But it's still something fairly fun to show which kickers are accurate and whatnot in a giant tic-tac-toe game. But then you could see they were adding some games that didn't necessarily matter, like dodgeball and some of those other games where you're just kind of like, okay, this isn't really football, right? Where you're just kind of seeing your favorite athletes play, you know, playground games. And that's not necessarily super fun to watch, right? And so it got me back to thinking of the old Pro Bowl games around the 90s, early 2000s, when you would have the longest throw competition, strongest man competition with the bench press. You saw these different types of challenges that actually showed football skills, right? Throwing the ball, accuracy, speed, strength, right? I think those are some of the games that real fans are going to watch. Because let's be honest, the casual fan's probably not going to tune in the Pro Bowl anytime soon, right? It's going to be a little bit of the hardcore fans that favorite players have made it. They're going to tune in, and especially if you're like, okay, wait, I'm a Josh Allen fan. There's a longest throw competition. I want to see if he really does have the strongest arm in the NFL, right? Or if it's, hey, Dak Prescott's competing in the accuracy challenge, right? What does that look like? And I do think the current accuracy challenge is fun and whatnot, but there's definitely, something off about it when you compare it to the last one, right? Quarterbacks were on the move last time with the chalk on the football throwing at targets, and these ones have breakable targets. And I think it's fun. It's very arcade-like, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily comparable to the NFL. Now, again, it's a game. It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be super serious. But I think if you were to take it, up a notch in terms of its serious level a little bit, and to actually show off football skills rather than, playing dodgeball, I think it can make the Pro Bowl games at least somewhat entertaining. Because it's similar to the idea of a 1v1 competition in NBA All-Star Weekend, right? Some players can show, hey, I'm the strongest guy in the NFL, right? Or I am, the most accurate quarterback in the NFL when it comes to these games. I think that has huge sway in, huge, I want to say like bragging rights, or there's so much upside for the players at that point because they get to be like, hey, I got to show my stuff off here if I really think I'm the best, right? Now you could fall into the fallacy of the NBA where you're like, I don't necessarily want to play in the 1v1 because if I get beat, that guy's clearly better than me and that could hurt my internet status or whatever. Because the NBA players are definitely thinking about that. So definitely things to think about. I'll probably watch the replay tonight. I'm not going to watch it over the Mavs game tonight, right? But hopefully they figure it out. They definitely have more problems in the NFL than their Pro Bowl, so we'll have to see. And so to end it off for today's episode, we have Super Bowl week. My thoughts on the game, I'll give my predictions and whatnot on Friday. So make sure you hit subscribe so you hear my thoughts on Saturday. Full in-depth prediction there. Kind of have to do a little bit of studying up. But my big question for this segment is going to be, who has to play better, Sam Darnold or Drake May? And my answer is actually a little bit confusing, right? On paper, you're like, well, Drake May technically has to play better because his team's already at a disadvantage on both sides of the ball. And I'm like, that's a fair point. But if you think about Seattle and their path to lose the game, right? If you're New England, actually, if you want to think it either way, for Seattle to lose, for New England to win, you're like, Sam Darnold has to play pretty bad. I'm not saying like he has to play atrocious, but he definitely doesn't. He definitely has to play average to below average football, right? And I think for Drake May, it's just like play it standard, right? For New England to win, they definitely want to keep it low scoring, right? For Seattle, you definitely just want to score pretty much every time you have the ball, right? I think Seattle has the much better offense, but if Sam Darnold messes up, that could be a huge thing. So when you're saying plays better, definitely answer Drake May. But when you have to say who has to play more consistent, it's Sam Darnold. He has to protect the ball. He doesn't have to flash his game. Maybe 200 yards passing, maybe 1-2 touchdowns, and that'll be good enough, right? It's where it's like, okay, who's going to have more turnovers? Now I know Drake May has had some somewhat turnovers this postseason run, but you're thinking of like Seattle's Achilles heel. It is Sam Darnold. I'm not dogging on Sam Darnold. I think he's played great this postseason. And I definitely think he's probably the front runner for Super Bowl MVP, especially with the storylines and whatnot. That'd be one heck of a story. But for Sam Darnold, it's going to be, can I game manage this matchup, right? Because New England's got a very good defense. The last thing you want to do is give them a freebie in terms of a pick six or even good field position, right? Especially when you have a good defense like Seattle does, right? You want to limit the advantage you give to New England, right? For New England, it's quite literally just that. You got to take advantage of when Seattle messes up. You have to take advantage of turnovers. You have to score off turnovers. You have to win the field position battle, right? They have to do the little things right, I believe, to win the game, whereas Seattle, they just can't make colossal mistakes, right? Because I think you could make the arguments New England has the better defense, but Seattle has the much better offense. Running the ball, wide receivers, quarterback. I mean, it's just there, right? A lot of people are thinking this isn't going to be necessarily a close game. I think when you go into that, you kind of set the expectations low. So you are kind of, your expectations are exceeded. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be more of a defensive matchup type game, but doesn't mean it's not going to be fun, right? I think a shootout has its merits and it's fun and it's definitely flashy for, casual audiences, right? I think the ideal Super Bowl is probably like 45-42, right? Just a lot of touchdowns. But I think this one could be our 17-13 type game, a 20-14, right? Like, I think the under is probably going to hit. I saw a little bit of betting. It was like, wait, because the under keeps going down. So you probably want to wait for it to go back up. I don't know those stats right now, but I'd probably bet on that. So I'm excited. It's not going to be the most flashy Super Bowl. I don't think there's too much narratives on the line here for these games. Because it's like, if Drake May wins, is New England back? Like, is Mike Vrabel one of the best coaches in the NFL currently? Or is it, hey, Sam Darnold kind of broke the narrative of these quarterbacks that don't succeed, where they're drafted? Do they take time to, really cook and get mature and really learn how to play NFL football? Is that a thing? Will it slow down this quick bang? I need a franchise quarterback tomorrow, right? I need that tomorrow instantly, right? We'll see. Does it maybe extend leashes of certain quarterbacks, right? This game could have a lot to say with Bryce Young and the Panthers potentially, or guys like, you know, I'm trying to think, like CJ Stroud. Does he get a little bit more of a leash? Do they have a little bit of a release on coaching, right? Hey, this quarterback has the skill, right? I think the coaching's holding him back, right? You can make that argument about Sam Darnold, right? He did a backup year in San Francisco. That kind of reinvented himself and was able to go to Minnesota and ball out for them, right? Win 14 games. He unfortunately lost and kind of turned into a pumpkin in that wild card game against Los Angeles. But this past year, or literally 2 weeks ago, he looked great against LA, just with a different team and different receiver, different scheme and whatnot. So that could potentially be the narrative shift in this game, right? It's literally Drake May. Oh, this quarterback helped us win instantly in his second year, or this Sam Darnold. He's on his third, fourth team. It's kind of a bust, but we got him when he was hot, and he's helped us win games, right? He's developed into a really good quarterback. We'll have to see, right? Does Drake May making the Super Bowl have any sway on MVP votes, right? The MVP will be announced before the game, but does it have any sway on if him or Matt Stafford will win? So a lot of things to think about with the narratives, but I don't think there's anything major like Tom Brady winning his 7th, or is he the GOAT, or three-peat. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it hurts the game, right? Because it's like this could be the start of something for either of these teams. So we'll have to see. I'm excited though. Again, prediction on Friday. I'm super excited. It's kind of crazy though that the NFL and NBA kind of have two major different trade rumors happening, or I guess news headlines happening. Super Bowl, NBA trade deadline. And honestly, trade deadline feels like it's getting more of the news right now because the Super Bowl, I won't say it's like lackluster or anything with like the headlines potential, right, with those storylines, but the NBA trade deadline could be crazy this year as it is pretty much every year. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Back here again, it's been a minute. I'm going to try to post a podcast at least every day except for Sundays. So let me know your guys' thoughts on the NBA trade deadline, the Pro Bowl, the Super Bowl, and anything you want in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching again, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.